So now that we finished kind of doing everything that we can so far in Blender, we're gonna go ahead and open up that other program that I mentioned to do the face vertex transfer. So for that, we're going to need this extra program. It's called Russian 3D Scanner, or it actually works. Once you open it up, it's also called Wrap. You can go ahead and download. It gives you a trial for 30 days, but there's a way to make a trial run forever. If you want to know how, you could ask in the server. I won't show it here. But once you have that downloaded, you can go ahead and open it up. And I kind of showed how to use this in another video I did, but not like the full like face transfer and then how to use it in Blender. So I will show you how to do that here. So once you have it open, just leave it open, go back into Blender. We can hide the body and we can worry about the face now. So first we're gonna open up Cloud's head, load it in, go into solid view mode, and here would be where you would have to maybe do some extra adjustments to your custom head. Obviously we have them where we want to because we already posed the model, we already got rid of the vertex groups, so we basically can't go back unless we completely undo everything, and we're not going to do that. So just make sure that your model is where you want it to be, obviously. But for some reason, if you had like a head that didn't have the neck, let's see what happens if I choose UV. Okay, but for some reason, if you had a model where it was just the head, didn't have a neck, or one of those really old models that, if you had Cloud, oh, like this one, that doesn't have the back of the head, this is where we can kind of combine things together. So I'm guessing this is what the scalp was for in the hair. So we can just go in here, go into edit mode, and I wonder which one it is. Not that one. That one. We can just select it using L. Now we can open up our head again. There we go, that was the back of our head. Okay. So I'm just gonna go ahead and combine that with his head. Control J. Alright, and here in our materials tab, we can see that we have a couple of things, but probably not everything that's in this actual object. This is because when you combine materials, let's say you separated a tiny part that had multiple materials in the object and then you combine it with something else, it also takes information from the other materials even if it didn't use all of them. So we can get rid of the materials that we're not using by hitting remove unused slots. So that got rid of 2 of them. That's fine with me. But Wrap doesn't like it when you have 2 materials. There's a way to do this if you know how to use Wrap. I'm not a Wrap expert. If you do join the server and you ask questions, which I think you should, TJ in the server, TJ does know how to use Wrap really well. So any Wrap questions, please ask TJ. But in my case, I don't know how to use Wrap as much as I know how to use Blender. So I'm going to use a certain tool to kind of combine these materials together. There is a... Alright, it never opened up. Alright, let's see if I can add in this material combiner add-on. I'm going to preferences, to my downloads tab. I think deleted it. So let's look it up online. It's called Material Combiner add-on. Let's go ahead and download it. You can hit refresh. It's right here. Now if we look it up by looking up Material Combiner, we can go ahead and turn it on. You can save our preferences, close it, and it's right down here. Alright, so this the way this add-on works is by combining your materials into one map. That way Wrap doesn't have a fuss when we try to import an object with multiple materials. So with our object selected and in the Material Combiner add-on, we can hit Generate List, and it will be a list of every material that's in the viewport. So if for some reason we had that eyelashes on as well, we hit Update, it's also going to have the eyelash here. So let's go ahead and hide the eyelash. Let's re-update that. In terms of settings for this, I've honestly never messed with it. I remember maybe last week I was having a problem with this. Hopefully it works this time. So once this is selected, you're just going to hit Generate Texture Atlas. Save it wherever you want. I'm going to save it in the Glen folder. You can't change the name, it'll just be called Atlas when you do open it up. And if we hit create, there we go. It created one combined material. If you go into our shadings tab, we see that it got rid of our roughness map and our normal map. So the way this works is, unfortunately, it uses only, or it combines only our color map. So to fix this, we would have to use Photoshop as well. To open up the texture in Photoshop, we're gonna go ahead and look it up. We're gonna open it up, and we are going to embed in the rest of our textures, which include our occlusion map and our roughness map. No need for metallic because we're dealing with skin and hair. There's no metal in both of these. So we'll start with our roughness. Alright, so now we're ready to use Wrap, but first we have to export this out. Let me close this by hitting N. So to export out a head, Wrap uses OBJ as its format. So we can just hit Export under File, find Wavefront, also called OBJ, and I'm just going to save this on my desktop. I'll call this Glen. No need to touch anything here unless you have multiple objects in your viewport. You can limit to selected only, so we'll do that. And it exports. We're going to do the same with Cloud's head. We're going to use this transfer head just because we have this extra copy that we're going to be using. And we can export as Cloud. Again, as long as you don't close Blender, it keeps the same settings for stuff. Alright, so now we are in our Wrap program. And we can start using it. So the way Wrap works, it also uses nodes. I explained this before, but in case you didn't watch that, I'll explain it here. It uses nodes by hitting Tab. It tells you right here. You can open up this menu. So we're going to need a load geometry, and we can rename this to make it easier for us. I'll call this Cloud. We're going to need two of them because we have both Cloud and we have Glen. Okay, I'm going to move this down just a little bit. And I'm also going to bring in a load image. This is for Glenn's textures where they're going to be inputted. We could only do one texture at a time, which is fine. Let's open up his color map first. Input it, and now let's bring in the actual OBJs. So that was in my desktop. This one is Glenn. And this one was Cloud. You can't see it here. This is because it's like Blender. Obviously the heads were floating in space. They weren't on the ground. Here it tells you how to move the viewport. So we're going to use Alt. I'm going to zoom out. And here we go. Here is our faces. They're exactly how they were in Blender. Okay. To make it easier for us, I'm going to click on Glenn's geometry node, and I'm going to turn off wireframe, just so we can see a little bit better, and that way we know which is why I'm also not putting in a texture on a cloud. We're going to hit tab again, and now we're going to look up select point pairs. Okay, I'm going to leave this right here. So this first node is going to be Cloud. This second node is going to be Glenn. Okay, and so for our output, we're going to need fast wrapping. There's multiple different ways to do this. You can, I think, do it by hand if you do wrapping, and that would require you to select each node, by hand. But because these are both like face models, we can use a fast wrapping. It kind of does it automatically for us and gets rid of the pain of doing it by hand. So this floating geometry is going to be Cloud. This fixed geometry is going to be Glenn, which means that floating is going to wrap around the fixed geometry, which means that we are going to basically warp Cloud into Glenn's head shape. That way we are able to not have to deal with animating or weight painting the head in Blender and messing up something. We use the exact vertex groups in the exact place that the original game model had them in. That way we hopefully get the face to work perfectly in the game. Last thing is just to select this yellow node together, and now we can click on here. So this fast wrapping we could only see in Visual Editor, so we'll go over here now. Actually, before that, we can hit select point pairs, and we can sync views. So in case you want to actually wrap this by hand, you can move both models at the same time and place a point in the parts of the face where you want to kind of create an outline of the face. We're not going to do that, obviously, so we're going to leave it as is. We're going to go back to fast wrapping. I like to just tilt the head to the side just so we can see if it does stuff like the brows, the eyes correct, and all that stuff. Also another thing, thankfully this head doesn't have it, but if you go back into Blender, we turn off Cloud's head, and we move around Glenn's face. He has backface culling on, so let's turn that off. For some reason, you have a model. I don't think any some new games use it. It's kind of like a mouth cavity that you would see in the back to kind of simulate your actual mouth cavity. You would have to delete that because our game head does not use a mouth cavity. It's just the inside of the lips, which we see here as well. But if for some reason you had a face that doesn't, or that does have one, you're going to have to delete it before you go into wrap. Thankfully this doesn't have it though. So we're good to wrap. Before we wrap, we want to change a couple of things. We want to make sure that normalized sampling is on, And then we want to change our sampling type from topological to, I can never say this right, Euclidean. I don't know if that's right. To Euclidean. Simply because this sampling type works better in terms of like having an even distribution of our faces when it starts moving Cloud's face to fit Glenn's. You don't have to hit auto compute, we can just hit compute instead, and we can see the head moving. It won't be completely perfect. As you can see, it's a little bit bumpy around the top of the head. You can play around, maybe try a different sampling type, but always have normalized sampling on. You can mess with this stuff, but is really the only problem that I see is, oh, we left his earring on. Hold on, let's go back into Blender. Let's delete Cloud's earring. That's right here. We don't need that, so let's delete it. And let's re-export Cloud. To here. For the new one, we can reload. Alright, now we can just hit this again. There we go, it's a bit better. Like I was saying, because it looks like it did a really good job on everything in terms of like the eyes, the lips, the nose, the ears as well, I'm going to be okay with the head being a little bit bumpy at the top. We can fix that when we go back into Blender if you want to smooth that out. It might be covered by the hair, so who knows if this is even going to be a problem. But the next thing we have to do is export this out. So I'm going to hit tab again. I'm going to type in save and save geometry. Plug that in, and with that node selected, we can go ahead and save this. I'll save it again in my desktop and I'll call it Wrapped Glenn. Make sure to tick on save normals or else you'll get kind of like this weird bumpy issue when you re-import it into Blender. So hit compute current frame. You'll see it save at the bottom. And once that's done, we can now worry about our texture instead. So for our texture, we're going to need a couple more nodes. We're going to look up transfer texture, and we're going to look up source geometry, which is going to be Glenn, and then our target geometry, which is this fast wrapping node. And then that shows the, let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now it transferred over Glenn's head to Cloud's UV. As you can see, it's in the same space, the same layout, instead of the way Glenn's texture had it. Okay. Now we're going to need one more called extrapolate image. This kind of just fills out the extra empty spaces that this had. And before we save it, we can change our resolution. I think Rebirth had face textures at 4K, so we'll do 496. There we go. Took a while to load. Okay. So now we can hit extrapolate again. And our last node is obviously going to be a save image node. Plug that in. And we can go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it back in this folder. And we'll call it new face C for color map. Hit compute current frame. And it's all done. We're going to have to do this for each map that this face has, which means we're going to have to do it for the O, N, and the MG map. So I'm going to do that really quick. Alright, so once we have that all done, we can go ahead and import the new wrapped OBJ head that we got from wrap. So hit File, Import. We're going to need OBJ. I had it in my desktop. It's right here. We don't have to change any import settings. We can just import it right in. Let's turn the overlay back on. So now we are going to move this head and kind of use it as a base for cloud, because if we try to use this head, we can't. It doesn't have any vertex groups, as you can see. OBJs don't hold any information really at all, which is why this is empty. But we're just using this kind of like as a template to, again, we're gonna move cloud's head one more time. But before we can do that, we have to hit N, go to our item tab, and we can see that our rotation is off by 90 degrees. We're not going to move it. Instead, we're going to hit Control A to open up this menu, and we're going to apply all transforms. That kind of resets the head and like the rotation information without actually moving the head. You're going to need that before you can actually do this next part with shape keys. Let me close this menu. And with this extra head that we have, obviously in case something goes wrong, we are going to select this Glenn copy, shift select cloud, so he's that light orange color, and in this data tab, we're going to go to the shape key tab. We're going to hit plus. This creates like our base shape in case we ever need to go back to the original shape. But we're going to hit this drop down menu next, and we see this option here called join as shapes. So we're going to hit that, and it's going to create a new shape that's named after what we joined it with, quote unquote. To actually see it move, we're going to take this value slider and we're going to slide it up all the way, and that basically moves cloud's head into Glenn's shape. If we hide this, we can see it happen here. The reason why we can't just do this from, Glenn's original head with cloud is because the vertex count is different. For shape keys to work in terms of transferring shape keys, you need to have the same amount of vertex groups, or else this doesn't work, which is why we need to choose wrap to do this. Again, there's multiple different ways of doing this. This is just one way that I think is kind of easy, and there's nothing wrong with learning a new program, especially if it's free. So with this new cloud head, before I apply my shape keys, I want to make sure it moves like it's supposed to, which means that I'm going to click on cloud's armature, go into pose mode, and I can kind of scroll down his spine bones to find his first neck bone. I'm going to turn off the overlay so I can kind of turn off the bones and actually see the model. And I'm just going to start moving stuff around like I would. You can see that obviously there was a mouth open somewhere, which is fine. But we can see that it moves. We can go in further into his head information, and we can try to find stuff like his eyelids, which are these. We can move them around. We can see that his eyelids move fine. We can do the same thing with his nose, and even with his upper lips. So that tells us that, yeah, the model moves. It retained all the information from cloud. So we can go ahead and apply all shape keys. Alrighty, So now we obviously want to make sure that our textures worked as well. So we can go back into material preview, into our shading tab, turn off the armature, and let's get rid of all the slots that we're not using. So we just have this head slot. I'm going to rename this into just Glen Head. Alright, so now we're going to turn on use nodes, and we're going to do what we did before. Add in an image texture and find where our new face is. So there we go. And one more thing. Okay, there we go. So now that we have Glen's head already transferred in terms of vertex groups, since we used Cloud's head and we transformed it into Glen's shape, and we did everything on the body, the only thing that we're missing is this beard, because we have Glen eyes up here, we have his eyelashes as well, and his mouth. Skirt and cape, we're going to be using a different character model from the game, so we will leave that for another time. So let's worry about transferring over this beard instead. Okay, so we are done transferring everything that we possibly could with Cloud's model, with Cloud's armature. So now we can go ahead and add this in, or move everything from Glen over to a new Cloud armature. First though, obviously we had Cloud kind of spread eagle here, so we have to basically put the legs back together. The way we do this is by hitting the armature, going to pose mode, select all the bones, and you're gonna hit clear rotation. The reason I say just clear rotation instead of clear all transforms is because in case you scaled up or down Cloud's arms, let's say you were working on a female model, most female models have smaller arms than a man, and you scaled Cloud's arms down, if you hit clear all, then that's gonna put the arms back in place, and then when you try to parent your custom mesh to this armature, the fingers aren't going to move correctly because the bones aren't in the right place. So only clear rotation on this. You can go back to object mode, and we are going to create 2 duplicates of this Cloud armature. So do Shift D twice. I'm going to name one of them last. This is just so I know that I'm going to use this one last. I can turn that one off. I could also turn off Cloud's body. And we are going to open up Glen's body. This is all that we need for now. We just need the body for this first parenting. So select the body, shift select the armature, and you're going to hit Control P and object keep transform. Now with it here, before we can start moving stuff around, we need to add in that armature modifier. Just down here. And we can use this eyedrop tool to make sure that we select the correct armature. Alright, once that's selected, we can toggle back on Cloud's body, select this armature, we can turn off this one, and we can go into pose mode. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to move back Glen's legs to where Cloud has them originally. So you can hit this bone right here. I know where the leg bones are for this game because I've done it a bajillion times, but again, you could also use this bone tree to find the bones that you need to. I'm basically going to use R, and I'm going to rotate his legs back. Doesn't have to be super perfect, especially because obviously Glenn has much bigger pants than Cloud does. I won't have a problem in terms of like vertex groups mushing, because just because they're touching doesn't mean that they're going to transfer vertex groups over anymore. We already finished that part. But just because of, you know, how legs are standing, I don't want him to have his legs kind of bowed in. So instead, I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to find his foot bone next. So with this foot bone, I'm going to rotate it just so his feet are on the ground. So I use R to rotate, then I'm going to use G to move, and Z on the Z axis just to move it down. There we go. And we can do the same thing for the other leg. Alright. Go back into object mode. Turn off Cloud's body. We turn off the armature. And we add in the material mode, or the material preview. You can see our body here. Sometimes you may have meshes where it kind of becomes like bow-legged around this crotch area. You could go into sculpt mode, and let's make this 45 instead. And you could kind of like fix this area if it's bothering you enough. I won't worry too much about it. It doesn't need to be symmetrical because we're talking about pants here. Pant folds aren't, you know, symmetrical in real life anyway. Okay, so now we did our first movement of this mesh. So we have it where we need to, but we can't use this armature because the legs are crossed over. So what we need to do is we need to select the body, go to our modifiers tab, and apply this first. We can turn this off because we are not using it anymore, and that's why we have this last body. This is the last armature that we're going to be using for now. So select the body, shift select armature, do the same thing. Control P, object keep transform, and we're going to add in that armor modifier. Okay, so because we're not using this anymore, we can delete it. No point of using a messed up armature. So now that we have this here, we can move over everything that we've weight painted so far, including the stuff that was also under Cloud. So let's just open up everything so far, including this transfer head, his mouth, eyes, and eyelashes, and everything here so far that has a vertex group. Okay. So now we can, instead I'll select the first thing on top, and then shift select all the way down, and then control click the armature. That way it's orange. Then we hit Control P, and we're gonna do the same thing. Now instead of adding the armature again, especially that we know that this one actually still has the old armature, what we can do is we can select the one that does have the correct armature applied, and shift select, making sure that this one is the lighter orange, and then we can do Control L, and we can copy modifiers. That way they all have the same armature modifier in. Alright, now this is like the fun moment of truth to see how well this moves. So we're going to go into pose mode, and we are going to click here, and we're going to turn off overlays. That way we can see our model, and we're going to use this instead to select each bone that we're going to move. We're going to start out with the trans bone. This is also our root bone, and we want to move this one first because it will automatically tell us if there's any vertex without weight painting on it, because that way it won't move. You'll have like this weird stretching going on. Alright, we can see that at least everything has a weight on it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the correct weight. When we start moving the rest of the bones, we'll figure that out. So open up this hip bone, and I like to start with the legs first. So we're gonna basically move every major bone in the body. Obviously your like femur, your like knee bone, your ankles, the 4 spine bones this armature has, as long as obviously your shoulders, elbows, wrists, finger bones, and your neck as well. Just to make sure that everything moves. Once you check those, you don't really have to check everything else unless you really want to, because as long as those work, everything else should too. So let's start with the legs. I'll just zoom in here and just hit R, and we can see it moves pretty well. I'm gonna keep going down to my foreleg, which is like my knee bone. Nope. Take that. If I go into this kind of side view, I can also see that knee bend is pretty good as well. And then we'll do our ankle. That moves fine. And let's do the same thing with our other side, our right side. Okay, everything looks good in the bottom half of the model. So let's go ahead and check the rest of the model, starting with our first spine bone. So now we can go ahead and check the arms. Usually this is where you find stuff that doesn't look as right. So this is where the fun part comes in. Let's start with the left side with our first bone. And what I mentioned before about how we saw that spine D kind of messing with this, you can see it right here. So obviously I'm guessing the same thing is on the other side, and it is. So we are going to go into our object mode again, turn on overlays, and we're gonna go to our weight paint tab again. Actually, before we do this, let's go back into our object mode, hit tab to go into edit mode, and we're gonna select out the shoulder pads. We could also take a look at the model just to see how the rest of the body also moves. I'm going to turn off the body. With this selected, we're going to go back into weight paint mode, into our vertex groups here. And we can hit remove unused vertex groups. That way we don't have to scroll through, everything. It's just what's influencing this mesh right now. I think the problem is the spine D. So I am going to remove everything related to the spine D. Obviously, if this is your first time doing stuff, always make a duplicate. That way you can kind of go back in case you mess up something. So I'm gonna just hit subtract. That way I just get rid of that completely. I may have to mess around with these deltoid groups later on. I can also get rid of that simply because I know our elbow group shouldn't mess with anything up in our shoulders. So I'm also going to get rid of this. We can leave bust for now. We may have to come back and get rid of some or add weights to certain groups. But let's go ahead and see if that helped at all. Let's turn this up. There we go. That moved it much better. So we had another issue when we were moving around our shoulder, and it was that we had vertex groups from this belt move up. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the arm up. We're going to do the same thing with the other side. Though we don't really see an issue here, so maybe we don't need this side up. But we're going to keep this up, and we're going to keep ourselves in this pose mode. We're going to select this, and we're going to go into our weight paint tab. And we're going to scroll it through, trying to see what's causing this. We can filter this by just choosing the left side, obviously, since this is the side of the body that we're on. And we're going to see if there's any extra group that's messing with this. I have a feeling it's this deltoid one. So I'm going to go into this wireframe mode. I'm going to change my radius back to 27. And I'm going to delete vertices, weights on the top of this. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Too big. Alright, so let's keep going through this. Alright, so it looks like it wasn't that one. So let's keep going through this, seeing what else could have caused this. Let's see, there we go. It was this shoulder sub. But we can see that it's now kind of clipping through here. Let's look up our spine bone as well. Maybe it's one of these. Maybe we don't have enough here. Let's see. There we go. That kind of straightens that out. Guessing if we keep going, we can get this to move in just a little bit more. So now that we've fixed this side, we can go back into our armature, into pose mode, and we can, by having this left shoulder selected, if you go to pose, we can clear rotation here. And now we're back to our original state. So we have finished weight painting and fixing all the vertex groups on Glenn so far. I want to stop this video now. I probably have to even split this that I've recorded today into at least 2 parts, maybe even more. I don't know. It's been a lot. But this so far is what we've done. I mean, I guess we could export this, but I want his cape and I want his little tiny skirt as well. So we will stop this here and we will continue on a later date.